Hello and welcome to Deakin University's Virtual Open Day. I'm Professor Damien Blake and I'm the Head of School for Deakin University's School of Education. During this presentation, I'm going to be introducing you to some of our initial teacher education programs that we offer at Deakin University in the School of Education. And those programs are for people who are interested in becoming a teacher. We're also hosting a live Q&A session after this presentation to answer any questions that you might have about the courses and any questions you might have about becoming a teacher generally. To start with though, I'd like to recognise the various traditional lands on which our campuses are located. We acknowledge the land, the waterways, the airways of the Kulin Nation and the Guntitj Mara peoples. We acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging of all of the lands on which we work, study and live, and we pay our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. There really hasn't been a better time to come into teaching, and recent events across the world have really highlighted just how important teachers are in our communities. Universities and governments across Australia have recognised this for some time. And at Deakin, we've been working closely with governments and departments of education and the institutes of teaching to make sure our initial teacher education courses are amongst the best in the world. Our courses do provide undergraduate and postgraduate pathways into teaching careers in early childhood, primary and secondary teaching as well. But I do want to talk a little bit about the Deakin difference and what makes the School of Education different. Our graduates have amongst the highest rates of graduate employment, with almost 90% of our graduates securing a job even before they've graduated. Our School of Education is in the top 30% of faculties of education in the world, and we've been first in Victoria for student satisfaction for 10 years running. Our research has achieved the highest rating possible for research and impact, and we're also world leaders in translating that research into our courses too. Deakin's a world leader in digital learning, and in the School of Education, you'll have access to the largest network of alliance schools in Australia to support your professional experience. So becoming a registered teacher does involve a series of steps, and our courses in the initial teacher education are accredited by the Victorian Institute of Teaching and the Australian Children's Education and Care Quality Education Authority, otherwise known as ACEQA. This is an important feature of all our courses because the pathway to becoming a teacher requires studying an accredited course, which is supported by a high quality partnership with schools and early childhood context to support your professional experience placements. And once you've completed your initial teacher education course, then you'll be able to apply for registration as a teacher and start your career teaching. So I'll talk a little bit more about the initial teacher education courses that we offer in the undergraduate area to start with. Our undergraduate courses include the Bachelor of Early Childhood Education, if you're interested in a career in early childhood. We also offer the Bachelor of Education Primary for primary teachers, and the Bachelor of Health and Physical Education if you're interested in becoming a health and physical education teacher. We also offer combined courses, which is quite unique. These are combined undergraduate and postgraduate pathways, and these include the Bachelor of Arts and the Master of Teaching Secondary if you're interested in a secondary teaching pathway, which includes the arts and the humanities. And we also offer the Bachelor of Science, Master of Teaching Secondary pathway if you're interested in science and any related science pathways into teaching as well to become a secondary science teacher. Now, it's important that you do look at the specific entry requirements for each of these courses, and I'd encourage you to go in and look into more of the details of those in the specific course presentations that we have for each of these. In the postgraduate space, we have a number of postgraduate initial teacher education courses too for people who already have an undergraduate degree. Those courses include the Master of Applied Learning and Teaching Secondary, the Master of Teaching Early Childhood, a Master of Teaching Primary, and a Master of Teaching Secondary. You can also do combinations in the Master of Teaching course, which include primary and early childhood and primary and secondary as well. So you can see we've got quite a range of postgraduate courses into teaching that you can select from that cover all of our campuses and settings as well. I'll talk a little bit more about our undergraduate courses. The Bachelor of Early Childhood Education that you can do from 2021 is a 3-year course, and it's offered on the Burwood campus in Melbourne, and we also offer it online or in the cloud, as we call it. With the Bachelor of Education Primary, it's a 4-year course that pathways to registration as a teacher, and it's offered on our Burwood campus, our Warren Ponds campus, and our Warrnambool campus as well. The Bachelor of Health and Phys Ed is also 4 years. It's offered at Burwood, Melbourne, Warren Ponds as well in Geelong. And the Bachelor of Arts Master of Teaching Secondary Combined Degree you can do in 4 years, which is done as a fast track because it also uses trimester systems and more efficient combination of undergraduate study and postgraduate study in education. That course is offered at Burwood in our Melbourne campus and also via cloud online too, as is the Bachelor of Science Master of Teaching combined course, which you can also complete in 4 years if you study the fast track pathway, and it's done on our Burwood campus and in our cloud campus as well. I will just point out some general information here in relation to entry into these courses, but again, I encourage you to please attend a session on each of these specific courses and also to download the information that's available on our websites where you'll find all of the most accurate information. But you should check the ATAR for each of these specific courses. All initial teacher education courses in primary and secondary, for example, do require an ATAR of 70, and you should check the ATAR for the Bachelor of Early Childhood Education, which is coming in 2021. So again, please check the ATAR for each of the specific courses, which will be addressed in each of the specific course presentations. And you'll also need entry requirements that are quite specific to the courses as well. For example, if you're looking at secondary courses, there'll be other additional requirements that you need to cover as well. So this information is provided in those presentations and on our websites. You'll need an English language proficiency requirement if you haven't completed your study in Australia, for example, and come from school, for example. And all initial teacher education courses require completion of a non-academic test, and we at Deakin use what's called the CASPER test to assess some of the attributes in terms of suitability to come into teaching. 2 other points worth mentioning: you will need to get a working with children check, because as teachers you'll be working in schools, and all of our initial teacher education courses in Australia also require students to do a Landtite test before they graduate. And the Landtite test is an assessment of literacy and numeracy, and that then allows you to apply for registration as a teacher after you've completed one of our accredited courses, as I've been talking about there. So they're the undergraduate courses. With the postgraduate courses, the Master of Applied Learning and Teaching Secondary program can be done in 1.5 years if you study it across the 4 trimesters, as in we have 3 trimesters at Deakin, and if you do 1, 2, 3, 1, a combination of 4 trimesters in a row, then it's completed in 1.5 years, which is quite unique. It is the fast track pathway that does use intensive on campus and cloud as well, and the intensives that we offer in that course are done at our Warren Ponds campus. But the Master of Teaching Early Childhood is a 2-year program offered at Burwood and in the cloud campus, and each of the other Master of Teaching courses are also 2 years and offered via the Burwood and cloud campuses as well. So across the full suite of our postgraduate initial teacher education courses, you can see you can do a broad range of studies in education to take you to become a teacher in early childhood, to become a primary teacher, to become a secondary teacher, and as well as combinations of those. So you have a lot to choose from at Deakin in terms of our postgraduate studies too. We also offer an associate degree in education for students who may not be able to access one of the undergraduate courses directly, but are still very interested in studying teaching at Deakin. So the associate degree in education is a guaranteed pathway into the Bachelor of Education Primary, in which you study 12 units that are credited into the Bachelor of Education already, plus an additional 4 units that help prepare you for your degree in education. So you complete the associate degree in education in 2 years, but the way we've designed it, so it overlaps with the Bachelor of Education Primary, which is normally done in 4 years, the way we've designed it allows you to complete the 2 of them in 5 years, because we share at least 12 of the units across those 2 degrees. So it is an effective pathway into a Bachelor of Education if you haven't been able to access that directly for whatever reason. It's offered at our Burwood, Geelong and Warn Ponds campuses, and entry can be via a Senior Secondary Certificate of Education or a Certificate 3 or other vocational education equivalents that are relevant work and life experience. You also still need an English language to meet English language proficiency requirements, and you'll need a personal statement as well. So have a look more into the associate degree if you think that is the pathway for you into a teaching degree. So the professional experience that I mentioned earlier is a really important part of all initial teacher educations, and at Deakin we have an amazing team of people who can support you. All of Deakin's initial teacher education courses include a substantial component of professional experience as a part of the course, and that requires you to undertake somewhere between 60 to 80 to 120 days, depending on the degree you're doing, where you're working in those contexts under the professional experience that's built into the course. So Deakin's Professional Experience Office works very closely with more than 1,400 schools across Australia to facilitate professional experience. And our Deakin Alliance schools offer a very unique opportunity to become a valued member of a local school community as a part of your professional experience, and that they are supported by people who we call site directors, and they're a very rich experience in our Alliance schools. The assessment is designed to be very practical as well with your professional experience, and it allows you to demonstrate knowledge and capabilities in those professional contexts. And at Deakin, we work very closely with our mentor teachers to help provide you with the best possible experience while you're undertaking your professional experience, and to make the links between theory and practice as well. We asked some of our current students what they would like to say to you about their experiences of professional experience, and we've shared them here. Caitlin, for example, said it's so easy. The Professional Experience Office, do it all for us. Caitlin's a final year student studying her early childhood education and primary teaching. And she says, for a few years, I didn't have a car, and the Professional Experience Office would call and check that the placement they chose for me wasn't too difficult to get to. So it's an example of how we try to do our very best in catering for your professional experience placements for your circumstances. In terms of her expectations and then the reality, Caitlin notes that going into a primary school, she was very nervous at the thought of teaching maths and science and worried that she wouldn't be fully prepared or informed. But then the reality was completely different. Caitlin says, I was so pleasantly surprised. It was such a relief to know you don't need to know everything. And the people around you are there to support you and teach you, she reflected. There's also Adela, who's a primary education student, and she says it's incredible. She said during a lunch break, as she was directing a class in the background, I love being in the classroom. So in terms of her expectations and reality, Adela says she knew she wanted to be a teacher when she taught her first class. It's different when you observe. When you start teaching and you see the kids learn, it's amazing. She said, I love watching the students and I get really excited when you're teaching a lesson, reading a book or playing a maths game. Although the best part is watching them struggle with a concept, and then you talk through it and you see them totally grasp that concept. So professional experience placements are really valuable, and they're life-changing for when you're becoming a teacher. You start to connect with all of the key concepts and ideas that we have in teaching in our teaching courses. And when it comes together, it really is a rich experience, as some of our students have reflected there. As I said earlier, all of our initial teacher education programs require a non-academic entry test. And most universities in Australia use what's called the CASPER tests, and Deakin does too. So the CASPER test is a non-academic entry test. It's also a requirement of accreditation. The CASPER test assesses teaching skills such as communication, teamwork, empathy, ethics, problem solving, and professionalism. It's an online test and it can be completed at home as long as you've got access to the appropriate technology, like the technology that you're using to access this presentation now. It involves 12 scenarios, 8 videos and 4 texts, and you're required to answer 3 open-ended questions, each with 5 minutes. The CASPER test does provide an opportunity for you to undertake practice tests, and the link to that is there on the slide. It does cost you $80 to sit the CASPER test when you do sit the actual assessment. So it's a good idea to actually have a go at the practice tests as well. So I hope you have found the information useful. And if you are thinking of applying for one of our teaching degrees, then you should look at the VTAC site if you're a current Year 12 students, because you can apply directly through VTAC. For our non-school leavers though, you should apply direct to Deakin, and our application site for that is deakin.edu.au/apply, as it is on the slide there. So I hope you found it helpful today, and you're most welcome to join our Q&A sessions immediately after this presentation. We've also got live chat throughout the day, and I'd like to encourage you to attend one of the specific presentations, one or more actually, that we've organised for each of the courses that I've mentioned today. So if you're interested in one or two of the undergraduate courses, please make sure you attend the course specific presentation, and the same with the postgraduate courses which we're running as well. You can also download our flyers on teaching, and also download the CASPER booklet, which provides much more information about the CASPER test as well. So thanks again for attending, and I look forward to seeing many of you hopefully studying teaching at Deakin in the future. Thank you.